All right, this is video 3 in our series, and we're going to look at assessment tools within SoftChalk. Again, SoftChalk as a self-paced lesson tool is going to utilize selected response as its main question types. It does have the ability for students to submit some writing and some other things to the quote-unquote instructor, but for the most part, most of its value, again, will be in selected response. Also, there is a couple of different ways that assessment kind of works through those selected response. One is it can be more rhetorical, like you could pose questions even just in your text and have students kind of think about those, just self-reflect and such like that. And you can use things like call-outs or sidebars or other pieces to go and to do that. We'll look at some of those layout type things like sidebars and such in our last video when we talk about management tools within the lesson. But think through that you could put over in the sidebar something like questions to think about, or whatever the case may be. At a slightly more advanced level for assessment than just kind of that rhetorical level, you could have SoftChalk actually go pose questions and then give them feedback on whether the students are right or not. Still not really have any points with it, but just kind of tell them here's what the right answer is, or such. We'll take a look at some of those here today. And then third is that you can go and actually grade them, collect the points off of their work, and then and that 3A you might consider you could have the points and just have not the points just don't go anywhere, versus 3B where the points actually do go somewhere. They actually go into the grade book. We talked about that in our first video that's called Learning Tools Interoperability. To make that work, you do have to set up the assessments correctly using points, so we're going to look at that today. Also, we're going to focus on just kind of the assessment portion of it. There's also interactive tools, which we'll look at our next video. Interactive tools are things that can be used for assessments. In other words, you could use them on any of those 4 levels as well, including points to be gotten for the LTI to be put into the grade book. So we'll look at those again in the next video. So what we're going to do is we're going to go under Insert. And again, I'm in the application. I'm not on the online editor here. I'm going to go Insert, and I'm going to go down to Quiz Popper. Okay. Not exactly sure why the popper term is there or where it came about, but SoftChalk from their entire history has always called quiz questions quiz poppers. And you can see that they've got 10 different questions that you can choose from. One nice thing about SoftChalk is they always have videos kind of with it, not only just in general, but each of these items, they're going to have information to give you. Okay, so let's just kind of peruse these here. Essay, as you know, that will collect information that the teacher can look at. Feedback question is kind of an ungraded activity that they can get feedback on. Matching, multiple answer, multiple blanks, where you would have a blank in your text, something like a closed type of answer and such. Multiple choice. Ordering, where you put things in order. Sentence completion is a little different than what you might be used to. And then short answer and true false. Short answer, as we always point out, if you're going to have SoftChalk grade the answer, you need to have the answer be something that can be exact. Like we always use the example, if someone writes out the word first versus put 1 ST, is it wrong? In a lot of cases, the online program, unless it knows that both are correct, it will count one of those wrong. Same thing with like writing out Saint, S-A-I-N-T, when writing St. Louis or something like that. Okay. So abbreviations are a very common thing, let alone typos and just other ways in which you can go and describe answers. So do be careful on that. All right, I'm going to skip down a little bit. Let's go ahead and make a new page here. I inserted a page break, so now I'm on page 3. Just to review, I'm going to go ahead and make that header. Just to kind of keep that consistency going. And so now I'm going to say something along the line to help preview this question. Let's see, here is transitional text for this topic. So I'd have some information I could put in there as being an instructional designer, kind of helping students go from page 2 into page 3 and kind of knowing where they're at. But now I want to have a question. So I'm going to go back under Insert, quiz popper. And let's start with a true-false question just to begin. And okay, so obviously the answer is true. If it was false, I'd want to click what the right answer is there. Here's where I can go in and say whether it's scoring or not. So I'm going to leave this one 0. You can make it so whether you allow people to retry or not. Within each one, notice that there's going to be tabs across the top of this little dialog box. So you can go under feedback and you can say what the answer is for a correct answer. There's just going to be a generic answer there. As well as a wrong answer, as well as what you could put in for a hint. Now, if I don't have anything here, the hint button won't show. So if I want to allow a hint, I need to enter in something there. Okay, and you can set the default and clear it out here. You can also say whether you want to show the correct answer with the feedback. Now, in true-false, it's kind of obvious. If they missed it, then they know it's the other one. But for multiple choice or the other question types, that's where that would come into play. And then there's a display option. They have 3 different display options. You can make it so that it is an icon that someone would click on to go in and pop that up. And you can see where you have a title entered in here. So I could go in and say, click below to test your knowledge. And then that will put there. You could, instead of doing that, you could say pop up from clickable text, and then whatever, it's kind of like a link would be in there. Whatever text you type in, they'd click on that, and a pop-up would come. Or you can have the question actually appear on the page itself. Okay, and then you can make it so that it's just right in line with text, or whether it's kind of like with an image, if it's aligned to the left and everything wraps around it, or aligned to the right, everything wraps around it. So we'll go ahead and do that. And there you can see it has been added in. Let me go in and add in a separate one really quick before we take a look at that. And this time, let's look at a multiple choice one. And for this one, let's see. I'm going to go ahead and make a point available for that. And for the answers here, again, it starts just with 2, so I can go in and add a couple of different answers, and we'll make C the right answer in this case. Put in a couple other options, and can't type very well. Okay, I could have individualized feedback for each question or each answer. Or I could go in and, again, edit this here, too. And, again, this is where showing that correct answer works out well. Now, this time, I'm going to go ahead and just embed it in the lesson so you can kind of get a feel for what that looks like. All right. Remember, grayed out. You can't see it in the editor itself, so let's take a look at that. I'm going to go and preview. It asks you to save it before you preview it, so click yes, and it'll open it up in my browser. So we did that on page 3, and there are the questions there. You can see multiple choice one. So if I miss this one, and I check my answer, you get the feedback there, and again, it would tell you what points you've got. For this one here, if I open up, that's what the pop-up looks like. Go ahead and click on that. Gives you feedback. No points for that one, so that's not part of the score. Note that as a student goes through, it kind of keeps a running total of their score over here. Now, just because it's scoring it doesn't mean it's going to a grade book. And as an instructional designer, you can use that to your advantage. You can tell students right at the bat, don't panic with the score. This is just to test your knowledge. The scores don't matter, saying things like that. But, it helps them kind of gauge whether they're understanding it. And you can even put maybe a guide at the end. Did you score between 17 and 20? Okay, you probably got pretty good mastery. Did you score between 13 and 16? Maybe you need to go through the lesson again, or whatever the case is. That's something that you can do. It's more of a formative self-assessment that students are using as they're going through. And then you as an instructor don't have to worry about managing the assessment here. The student and SoftChalk are really doing it all for you. Okay, so that's really quickly how you go in and you add quiz poppers to SoftChalk. A couple other things. I mentioned before that not all quiz items, let's get down there, have it so that you can get feedback to it. So with the essay, for example, I can pose the question. I can make it worth points, but again, the answer will not, and again, I can say whether it's via icon. Each icon, by the way, does look differently depending on the type of question that it is. So that's kind of a nice visual way to go in and do that. But you can't go in and put like feedback or anything like that because it is not something that's graded by SoftChalk. The other thing, too, that I want to mention is there is an item called a quiz group. And a quiz group is something you can go in and basically create a collection, an overall bundle, if you will, and then you can create the questions within it. So you can add question types here, and you see all of your different options. You can also import questions that you've got from the cloud, or it's kind of like LTI. They actually have what is called a QTI. You can go and do that. This is probably not something that anybody right now is using, but we are predicting within 4 to 5 years the creation of question banks might become pretty big in K-12 online education, so that, like if we had a statewide bank of multiple choice questions that were aligned to different standards, and teachers went through and said, hey, yeah, I want to go in and just add, questions for my particular grade level, my course area, my standards, and import them in. That would actually be very useful for teachers because they could do so within their own lessons, within their own learning management system, with their own lesson builder, and not have to actually go and recreate. And they can be selective about the questions that they would get. So that's a way to go in and import them and add them. If I wanted to go in, click on matching, it's going to go and basically run me through that prompt again. So for matching, here are the directions for it, and this is where you go in and match your items. And let's do one more here. Feedback, display, that type of thing. Now display in a quiz group, you don't have any options over that because it's going to just make it appear within that. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK for that. Actually, let's go ahead and just add some questions really quick here. I don't know if I have any from SoftChalk that I've saved there. I have not, so pull that up here. So those are my learning objects. Yeah, I don't have any. I have not done any. I should have saved some questions there. I'll show you in a second how you can save questions to SoftChalk Cloud and then repurpose them in these different quiz groups. But let's go ahead and just add one more question here. Let's do a multiple answer. And then answers would be and if my memory serves me correctly, it is everything but Iowa City in this view. If I'm wrong on that, I apologize. Number 5 and 6 is pretty close. Same thing, feedback and display. Click OK. All right, so we've got that in there. Now we click OK. Oh, I need to identify a group name. Go over my settings. Forgot to do that, so we'll just say Iowa questions. And again, I can go in and allow students to retry the questions or not. You saw that on those individual questions. I can make it so that the questions display in a random order, which can be a cheating prevention measure if you'd like. Or it can just be good to go in and just to have students test themselves over and over again so that, they're not memorizing the answers to the questions in that order. Number 1 is C, number 2 is D type of thing. They're going to get questions in different things. You can also make it so that the questions appear one at a time or not. I'm just going to click OK. So now let's take a look at it there. And we pop that open. Now you can see that you have the makings of a, for lack of a better word, kind of a quiz here. And then it goes in and it will tabulate the score for not only each question, but the overall quiz too. Okay. All right, so that's a look at assessment questions within SoftChalk. One other thing I did want to show you that's a little bit more advanced with a content tool. If you go under Insert, we talked before about inserting a SoftChalk Cloud item. And SoftChalk Cloud items are things that you have saved up into SoftChalk, which you can go in and save different items. I think, let's see here. You can't save individual questions, but I believe you can, yeah, you can save like a quiz group, for example, up to SoftChalk Cloud. And then once that's done, you can take that group and go and utilize it in different lessons. You can also do that with activities, which we'll look at next time, or images, or all types of different things in there. And then whenever you want to go and like insert something from SoftChalk Cloud, you just pull it up and you can go in and grab whatever you've created up there and say, yeah, I'd like to reuse that that particular interactive that I created beforehand, and now it's in there. Okay, but you can also go in and insert media from different places. So for example here, I've got, within SoftChalk they have a limited number of what they call repositories. So SoftChalk Share, which we looked at in our first lesson, is one. Flickr, of course, is a very big image repository. Merlot is a secondary level and higher education level repository of instructional lessons and content. It can search your computer, can search Wikipedia and YouTube. A lot of people like clicking on SoftChalk Share and YouTube for their particular thing. So like if I want to try to find something on Adult Learner, I could go in and do that. One of the things I was like playing around with, so I can click running and I could say how many items are going to show up via the max, and I can kind of limit it to 25 or make it more. So they have some hits from SoftChalk Cloud, and again, it's looking for a keyword, so running might be something that does apply here when I'm thinking of running, but otherwise it might be, you know, like running a program or something. But then I can also grab, for example, a YouTube video and put that in too. And you see that gets added in there. So it's a quick way, instead of having to leave your SoftChalk program, of going and adding content, rich content from there. And you know, there it is, right there. And that's an example of that interactive that I created. So those are two things that we wanted to help people think about as they're rapidly developing content in SoftChalk.